will be not on their phones, not on their computers for 3 days. It's like a world record or something, for 3 days in a row, the people have to stay away from the computer to disconnect from from all the worldly connections that people have for 3 days. Now, obviously, we have to have people have to have proper planning to make sure they have a nice Yom Tov. When you have 3 days, it's many meals, many big meals of Suda. On Yom Tov, we have a we have a responsibility to have a meal at night, a special meal at night of Yom Tov, a day of Yom Tov, which each meal is supposed to have the same way as Shabbat. You have two lechem mishneh, two breads. So here we'll have two matzot for each of those meals, except Pesach Seder. We know the common custom is having three matzot for the night of the Seder. So there's a lot of meals. And also Shabbat afternoon. This year, there's a special, this year we have a situation. What's very unique about this year's situation? What's unique is, good morning, Ronnie.
Good morning, Rabbi. How are you?
So we decided we're going to put some focus maybe on the halachot of Pesach today.
That's great.
And maybe we'll see if we'll get to Haggadah today. We'll get to that tomorrow. We'll be on today and tomorrow. We're saying that there's something very unique about this year, right, Mr. Haber? This year, the Bedikat Chametz, the search for Chametz will be tonight. We're making the search tonight. Good morning. Boker Tov. Good morning. You're looking for, which minyan you're looking for? First one is upstairs, 6:30. The elevator is right here. So just press 2. Welcome. Welcome. Morning. So we have this phenomenon that we're going to make the Bedika, the search tonight. Most years, you make the search at night. The next day, you burn the chametz, and we're going to be doing that this year as well. Search tonight. We're going to burn the chametz in the morning. However, most years, after you burn the chametz, there's a time that you have in the morning. You have to stop eating chametz. Let's say by 4 hours into the day, and you have to burn the chametz. Let's say by 5 hours into the day. This year, we have, because tomorrow night is not Pesach, right? There's a special law. The Torah says that the day before Pesach, meaning whatever Pesach is, if Pesach would have been tonight, the day before meaning the day before would mean this afternoon. From midday on, you're not allowed to have any chametz in your house. The Torah says from the afternoon before Pesach, I cannot have chametz in my house. Chametz has to cease to exist from the afternoon. Afternoon meaning from midday. Okay? Also, the Torah says, another law, the Torah says that when you slaughter the korban Pesach, the Pesach offering, there should be no chametz. Now, when did they slaughter the korban Pesach, the Pesach offering? The afternoon before the holiday. So if the holiday would have been tonight, this afternoon is the slaughtering of the Pesach, and you can't have any chametz from a Torah level from midday and on. Rabbinically, the rabbis added that 2 hours before midday, the rabbis were concerned about people making mistakes, and they said 2 hours before midday, you already have to stop eating chametz. And you have to also get rid of the chametz by an hour before midday. That's why we have this idea of 10:12 in the morning. That's like that will be like, that's the calculation of 4 hours into the day. You can't eat any more chametz, but you'll still see we have the burning time is until after 11. So you have a little extra time to burn. If you didn't burn your chametz by 10:12, you have it till 11 something, whatever the time is. Look at the calendar, 11:30, whatever, 11:20, whatever the time is to burn the chametz. That is the general years. That's how it's done. But this year, we're going to do the search tonight. we're gonna ask before we do our search, we say the blessing on the search, like that's what we always do. We say a blessing on the search. The only time we would not say a blessing on the search, if someone would have been traveling this morning, many people are traveling this morning, so they're supposed to make the search the night before they travel. And they make the search the night before, they search their house that they're leaving from the night before, but they would take the candle, but they would not say a blessing on that search. Because that's not the official time that the search is supposed to be done. And they would go ahead and they would make the search last night. But tonight, which is the official time for the search, just like today, it's interesting. We also have the phenomenon. Usually, the firstborns fast the day, right? If the Pesach would have been, if the Seder of Pesach would be tonight, they would fast this. If you want to send to the group that we're on, okay, no problem. They would fast this day, but as you know, the custom is that instead of fasting, they break their fast by going to a siyum. They go to when they finish someone finishes a tractate, they go ahead and they participate in that siyum. So that will exempt them from fasting. And that's the custom. So today is not, Pesach is not tonight, but still the siyum for the firstborn is today because they did not want the other possibility could have been Friday. We'll make the siyum on Friday. We're not gonna fast. We're not gonna make the siyum on Shabbat. That it should be a fast day on Shabbat, but they didn't want to make Friday come into Shabbat technically a fast day. So they said they moved it to Thursday. That's why you'll see there's gonna be siyum. There's gonna be a siyum having after the 6:30 minyan today. After the 8 o'clock minyan, there'll be siyum. Maybe someone will come in to give a siyum after the 7:30 minyan. But I know that there's at least 2 siyumim that are planned for today in the shul. But this year, the Pesach begins Saturday night. So the Torah prohibition of chametz starts Saturday afternoon. But that's the afternoon before the holiday. You already have to refrain from having chametz, get rid of chametz, can't eat chametz. Not only can't eat chametz, can't have chametz in the house. That would be starting Saturday Shabbat afternoon, because the holiday. Good morning. Are you looking for there's a 6:30 minyan upstairs. They're middle. There'll be a 7:30 minyan upstairs. There'll be a 7. It's at 7:30. Now they're up to Amidah upstairs now for the second. But the next minyan is 7:30 upstairs. The first minyan is now upstairs going on. So whatever you want to do. So, Mr. Haber, this year, because the holiday is Saturday night, so when does the Torah prohibition of chametz begin? Saturday afternoon, from noontime. Is that correct? The rabbinic prohibition of chametz starts already 2 hours before that. But that 2 hours, how you calculate the 2 hours, it comes out to be at 10:12 is already the time that you have to stop eating chametz. Shabbat morning. Shabbat morning, you stop eating chametz 10:12, and you have to 2 days. That's 2 days from now. 2 days from now. Now the question is, what do you do regarding the Friday? You come into. You did the search. You're doing the search tonight. After the search, you say a kol chamirah. What is the kol chamirah? That is a declaration that I'm nullifying any chametz that I don't know about. Maybe there's chametz that I forgot. I don't know about it. I want to nullify it. It's not a prayer. Many people make a mistake to think that what they say at the end of the, it says you say something at the conclusion of the search. Many people make a mistake. They think they're saying a prayer. It's not a prayer. It's a declaration of making something we call hefker. I am giving up ownership. It's a giving up of ownership of chametz. That's what you're doing. Is that clear? Because I can't own chametz over the holiday of Pesach. I can't have chametz if I have a place in New Orleans or I have a place anywhere. If I have to, I can't own it, right? I have to, on a Torah level, what do I got to do? I could sell the chametz. I nullify the chametz, right? But the rabbis didn't want to just say, okay, everybody just rely on nullification of chametz. A person has a lot of good intimate donuts and other things, and other very expensive good chametz, and he's going to say, I nullify it. Do you really mean it? So the rabbi said you can't just rely on nullification. You have to really you got to get rid of the chametz or sell it. So we have, but the nullification does cover us. What happens if there's chametz that I forgot about? We are humans, and we might have chametz somewhere in the office. And we have to check the office to make sure there's no chametz in the office. Check the car. Make sure you have no chametz in the car. It's part of your search. But let's say I forgot that I had chametz and I forgot. And there is a prohibition in the Torah to own chametz throughout at any point of the holiday. So, meaning there's different prohibitions. There's a prohibition you're not allowed to own chametz during the holiday, wherever the chametz in the world is. It could be in Deal, New Jersey. It could be in Israel. It could be in Florida. Wherever people have chametz, you cannot own chametz. But then there's another prohibition, which is a much stricter prohibition of eating chametz. Eating chametz is a much higher level sin. Correct, Mr. Haber? And the Torah says that the punishment for eating chametz is karet. And what is karet? The Rambam says being cut off from the next world, which is pretty much one of the worst things that could happen to a person, that it could be cut off from the next world. So it's a very serious punishment. And the way I think the Netziv learns, the Torah, this prohibition of not having chametz in my house, not that I don't own chametz, the Torah itself is creating a fence to protect us from not eating chametz. Because the pasuk says 7 days chametz should not be found in your house, and it says chi, because Chol ochel chametz, anyone who eats chametz, v'nichreta hanefesh, that person gets cut off. Now, obviously, cut off is only when a person intentionally does a sin. It does not get cut off if a person did not know that this item was chametz, and he ate it, or she ate it. They won't get karet for unintentional, but it's still a sin. And doing, just like we know, something called the chatat, a sin offering for Shabbat. First, it violates the Shabbat. One does one of the malachot, one of the prohibited actions of work on Shabbat. Someone does it, and he does it unintentionally. What does it mean unintentionally? He did not know. He did not know that item was forbidden. He didn't know that he can't put on a fire on Shabbat, and he made a fire on Shabbat. He made himself some coffee on Shabbat. He didn't know I can't do that. Or he forgot it was Shabbat. A guy forgets it was Shabbat. He knows I can't boil up water on Shabbat. You know what happened? He forgot. He forgot it was Shabbat. So what does he do? And he boiled up the coffee. First of all, he can't eat it. He can't drink it if he did act on Shabbat. But he has to bring a sin offering. If you're forgetting that it was Shabbat, I once told someone, "Do you ever forget your name? You don't forget your name. Why are you forgetting that is Shabbat?" So therefore, in order to be successful on Shabbat, what do? We have the water ready from before Shabbat. The water's already boiled from before Shabbat. We could keep it. There's ways to keep it warm, but that is the proper preparation. We won't come to violate the Shabbat. So here, also with Pesach, when we have the proper preparations for Pesach, we'll be very successful. So that is the Torah's fence. The Torah creates a fence don't have chametz in your house, don't own chametz in your house, and that will prevent you from actually coming to eat it. I always say, you know what, if you want to be successful on a diet, don't have cake in the house. If you have cake in the house, what might happen, Adam? You might eat it. But if you don't have the cake in the house, you're not going to come to eat the cake. So that is the fence to protect the person from not coming to sin. But this year, the question is, what do you do, being that Shabbat is Erev Pesach, being that tomorrow tomorrow is the 13th day of Nisan, right? When does the holiday of Pesach begin? The 15th of Nisan. And the holiday begins, the 15th begins, as you know, the Jewish day starts at night. Vayi Erev, Vayi Voker, the Pasuk says. It was the evening and it was the morning. So what comes first? The evening comes first before the morning in the Jewish day. Maybe we could suggest the evening comes before the morning. Maybe it's symbolic of the Jewish people's history of how life will be for the Jewish people. The evening represents darkness, difficulty, exile, that there's going to be a time we're going to have that, there's Erev, there's darkness. But a Jew always has to recognize and realize there's light at the end of the tunnel. How do you like that idea? This came to the world right now. I don't know if I ever said that before. Mr. Haber, you like it? You buy it? It's evening. There's Erev. But remember, there's Boker. Always, person's life always has to be with positivity, recognizing there's a good time coming. The best days are yet to come, so to speak. There's going to be a Geulah. There's going to be a redemption. There's going to be light. There's going to be a Boker. And so the 15th of Nisan is the day that's the night that you have the special mitzvah of telling the story, of telling the Haggadah. Because that was the night, the 15th of Nisan was the night that God skipped over the Jewish homes. And at midnight, exactly at midnight, middle of the night, he killed the firstborns of the Egyptians. And then Paro, as a result of that, came and said the people could leave. And the people left in the daytime on the 15th of Nisan. And that's why the 15th of Nisan, that was the day of the Exodus, and that's the day that we celebrate. That's the first day of the holiday. But this year, so therefore, if the 15th of Nisan is the first day of the holiday, so the 14th of Nisan, in the afternoon of the 14th, is where the Torah says you can't have any more chametz. And the Torah says, what do we do on the 14th in the afternoon? We slaughter the Korban Pesach, right? We have the mitzvah of Moni Levi, of Korban Pesach. You too, Levi. Thank you so much. We have a mitzvah to slaughter the Korban. We're going to be missing that from our table this year. If Mashiach's not here on time for us to be in Eretz Israel, then we're going to be missing the sacrifice of the Korban Pesach. But what we do is, and I don't think in person. I'm not sure about Zoom. We'll figure it. Thank you. Thank you too. We have this one of the big mitzvot that we're going to be since the Beit HaMikdash is not around, we're missing one is called the Korban Pesach. Is a Pesach offering, and therefore one of the things that we do at the Seder is we have a shank bone, which we roast the shank bone, and that's symbolic of the Korban Pesach. That's symbolic of the Korban Pesach, the Pesach offering, which was roasted, and we're not allowed to bring any offerings today outside. We don't have the Beit HaMikdash. It will be a big sin to bring an offering today outside the Beit HaMikdash. So we're very careful that we don't even eat. We don't eat that shank bone tonight. We don't want it to in any way look like it's an offering. And even when we say Rabbi Gamliel Hoya Omer, Gamliel said three things. You didn't say the following three things on Pesach You do not fulfill your responsibility. And some say that's the responsibility of the Haggadah, that to fill the mitzvah of Haggadah, of telling the story of Pesach, you need to go ahead and talk about the Pesach. You have to talk about the matzah. Good morning, Ralph.
Morning, Rabbi.
We're focusing on Pesach today. You have to talk about the Pesach, the matzah, and the maror, and that's a very key point in the Haggadah. That it's very important to make sure that the women are not that busy in the kitchen at that point, to make sure that it's translated into English, Spanish, or whatever the language the women understand. That when you get to the point of Gamliel, anybody did not say the following three things on Pesach, you do not fulfill your obligation, Pesach, Matzah, Maror, and then you describe and you talk about the Pesach, you talk about why is there the korban Pesach? Because Pesach is from the language of Pasach, which there's two translations. What does the word Pesach mean? One translation of the word Pesach is Passover. That became they got passed over the Jewish home. That's one translation of the word Pesach. The other translation of Pesach is Hashem had mercy on us. They're both true. Well, the question is, what is the translation of the word Pesach? Is Pesach means passed over, or does Pesach mean he had mercy? It seems like the world translates it Passover, that he got passed over. That's why we have the Korban Pesach, and that's what we mentioned. The matzah is because there was no time for it to rise, and the maror, we go ahead and we represents the bitter times in Egypt. But when we say the word Pesach, when we say Pesach, because when we explain the Pesach, it says you don't lift up the shank bone. You look at the shank bone. Nobody should think that this is a Korban Pesach. This is the Pesach offering. We don't want anyone to make that mistake. Like I said, we will not eat it. We will not eat it that night of Pesach. You could technically, if you make two shank bones, you could eat it the next morning and have another shank bone ready, the night before, for the second night. But that night of Pesach, we won't eat the shank bone. Yeah, also this year we have something which is interesting because we're going to run from Shabbat into the Seder. So the Seder is Saturday night, mostly Shabbat. We can't prepare for the Seder until after Shabbat. Usually, when it comes out on a weekday, you have the afternoon beforehand, you can have the table, everything ready, everything set, everything ready before the Seder. And you prepared the tables and you prepared everything for the Seder, but you're not allowed to prepare on Shabbat for Yom Tov. So Saturday afternoon, we can't already set the table for Saturday night. Now, the key for success is to do everything you can between now and tomorrow night. Everything you can between now and Shabbat, do all your cooking as you can, as you need to. That the only thing you have to get busy with Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, is warming up the food that was already prepared for before Shabbat. You don't want to start getting busy cooking Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat. So with proper preparation, your person will be very successful. So therefore, you do as much as you can in getting everything. Therefore, when Shabbat is over, immediately you start and get all your Mr. Haber, you got to be careful on the bed. Immediately you start, start as soon as you can. That's the general halacha every year. Pesach, you're supposed to start the Seder as soon as you can. You don't want, one reason is we don't want the children to fall asleep. Another reason we don't want the adults most probably to fall asleep. But you want to start as soon as you can, the Seder. Now, we're saying what's interesting this year is the phenomenon that Friday, now remember, Saturday night, Motzei Shabbat, the holiday begins is the 15th of Nisan. We said on the 14th of Nisan in the afternoon, you can't have chametz, And we said now the rabbis added a couple of hours from, let's say, 10, 12 in the morning. But on the 13th of Nisan, you're allowed to have chametz. There's no prohibition of chametz. So when is the 13th of Nisan? 13th of Nisan will be tomorrow. Tonight, tomorrow is the 13th of Nisan. Therefore, because it's the 13th of Nisan, even though we do the search tonight, usually we do the search on the 14th of Nisan. And the holiday is the 15th of Nisan, right? The search is the night before this holiday generally. Holiday is 15th of Nisan. The search is when, Adam? 14th of Nisan. This year, the search is going to be on when? It's going to begin on the 13th of Nisan. Tonight is the 13th of Nisan. Being it's the 13th of Nisan, and we said the day goes from night to the morning, to the rest of the day. So this whole day of the 13th, there's no issue of chametz. So even though I'm burning the chametz in the morning, tomorrow morning, I could still eat chametz, right? I can eat chametz. So we said, I'm going to finish the search tonight. I'm going to say a kol hamira. I'm going to make a declaration. I'm going to make ownerless any chametz that I might have forgotten about. But any chametz that I know about that I plan on eating, I'm not nullifying that chametz. I plan on eating the chametz. I plan on having breakfast tomorrow with I might put away Danish for tomorrow for breakfast. I'll be careful about all the crumbs. I'll be careful about that because I already made my search. But and what am I doing tomorrow night, Friday night? What am I eating Friday night for Shabbat? Now, technically, I would think, according to, there is now let's understand something. Rabbi, what's the problem? Have matzah tomorrow night, have matzah Shabbat morning, Saturday morning. Now, there is a restriction that you're not allowed to have matzah if on the day that Pesach, meaning if Pesach is coming tonight, you will not be able to have matzah today. I want to have breakfast. Let's say, technically, this Saturday night is Pesach. Saturday night is Pesach. If I want to have matzah Saturday morning, Shabbat morning for breakfast, let's say I want to have, I'm not allowed to. Rabbi, why can't I have matzah Shabbat morning? Because we want that there should be a certain appreciation for the mitzvah of matzah. And if you already had it Shabbat that day, you already had it in the morning, you're not going to come to the Seder with the same fervor and enthusiasm and excitement if you already just had that in the morning. So therefore, there's a strong restriction. I can't have matzah Shabbat morning. Technically, I would think you should. There are different customs. Some people refrain from matzah already a month before, and I presume the Hasidim are more strict on that. They might stop matzah a month before Pesach. Some customs from Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 2 weeks before Pesach. Different people have different restrictions on when they stop eating matzah. I think the Gemara law is just the day of that Pesach is going to be coming out that night, from that morning on. So I'm going to have a situation Shabbat morning, and I don't believe people have matzah the night before Pesach either. So Friday night, Shabbat morning, what am I going to have for Shabbat meal? Shabbat morning, what am I going to eat? So many people are going to be having, and I have to be finished Shabbat morning, my meal, I have to finish at least the bread by 10, 12. What did you say, Ralph? What's the time over there?
10, 15 or 10, 12.
Something like that. Yeah. Right. So maybe depending where you're living. So now I have to be finished the chametz by 10, 12. So what's happening is, I think most synagogues are all praying early on Shabbat morning. They're praying early. There's not going to be the regular typical 9:30 minyan on Shabbat morning. Check it out. What time are they davening here? Have you checked? You got to check it out. The minyan, Mr. Haber, is going to be early on Shabbat morning this year. One time a year, people have to daven early on Shabbat if they want to. Meaning, maybe they want over here to daven early. But if you want to daven early, you say, but this Shabbat, you don't really have a choice. I think generally, I think because of this issue, because so most synagogues are gonna be praying early, and they're gonna go ahead to give time people to get home on time to have their pita. Many people are having pita. Why are they using pita for bread for hamotzi? Because pita doesn't have so many crumbs. It's only a practical point why they're having pita. It's chametz, but many people in the Ashkenaz world is not so much into pita like the Sephardi world. Sephardi world is more into most probably the falafel world, right? I would speculate. And so a lot of the Ashkenazim are having just a challah rolls, but they're very, they'll have challah rolls Shabbat morning and Friday night. They'll just be very careful about any of the crumbs. And any crumbs they have, they will go ahead and put it into the bathroom, flush it down the toilet if there's any crumbs, or if they're in or get it out of the house if they have a place where there's an eruv, they would be able to remove it from the house, and that's how they're gonna deal. They can't be left. You can't be left with any chametz in your house over the holiday. So that's going to be a situation that what some people are going to be doing, how they're going to address the issue. You could look into what your synagogue, what they're recommending. Adam, any questions on that, or it's pretty clear? So that is so we're going to be looking at the clock a lot Shabbat morning, and then after we finish eating the chametz, whatever chametz if we ate Shabbat morning, then and after we got rid of any crumbs that are left, then we go ahead and we say the kol chamira. Then we make the declaration, which usually we make the declaration, declaration of nullification is generally recited on the morning that you burn the chametz. But here, you plan on eating chametz still, so therefore you save the second declaration to when you get rid of the Shabbat morning after you finish eating the chametz. And that declaration should be done by 11 something, maybe 11:20 or whatever time might be. I just recommend that when you finish by 10:12, I recommend there's such a concept called mitzvah bali yadcha atas mitzvah. When you have a mitzvah, don't delay. So if you finish, once you finish your chametz, you finished eating your chametz, let's say by 10:12, whatever the time is, you go ahead and you immediately get rid of the crumbs, whatever's left, and immediately don't delay, say your kol chamira, say the declaration, and therefore then you're good. Now, you don't have to say Birkat HaMazon after you finish eating the chametz. You could continue eating your food. The rest of the foods will all be Passover foods. You can continue eating a nice, beautiful meal. If you want to continue eating a meal, you're supposed to honor the Shabbat. So I would say continue eating your meal. And that would be your Shabbat meal. And that's how you would, because now the question is, what's the difference between the nullification that you say at the night of the search, after the search? Remember, start the search with a blessing. And when you make the blessing on the search, from the time you say the blessing until you begin the search, you got to be careful not to take telephone calls, not to interrupt between the blessing and the search. And really, you're not supposed to be taking any calls, being involved in anything but the search until the conclusion of the search tonight. Because remember, your blessing on the search, the blessing goes for the whole search, right? There's a mitzvah to say a blessing on this mitzvah. What is this mitzvah? The search. So I'm doing the search, and I said a blessing on the search. So as long as the search is taking me, I'm supposed to not be doing other things. I'm not supposed to be talking about anything else. The only thing I really have the ability to talk about if I need to say something about the search. You have to say to your mom, what do you have to say to your father? You have to say to a family member, do you know where the chametz is, or where this chametz, will put this chametz over here? Well, if you want to talk about the search, that you could talk about. But anything that's not dealing with the search itself, you cannot interrupt your search by talking about anything and taking calls. We hold all calls for afterwards. And that's also similar to what we said about the Seder, that the Seder you're supposed to begin right when, as soon as you can, when you come home from shul, when it's dark, that's when the time of making the Seder is. So too, the search for the Chametz. When does the search of Chametz begin? Tonight, when it gets dark. That's when you're supposed to go ahead and do the search for Chametz. You shouldn't go ahead and wait till later on in the evening. I'll do the search later. Plan your day that you should be available to make the search as soon as it gets dark. You don't want to get late. First of all, it gets dark late, and you don't want to get tired. You want to be on top of the game. You don't want to delay the mitzvah. Also, make sure have your supper earlier, not so late, because once it's time for the search, I can't start eating supper. I can't start eating supper at 8 something tonight when I didn't do the search yet. So I either have to eat the supper late, later in the day before it starts getting, before it starts getting dark, before the sun's going down, or you're gonna have to wait to eat your supper after the search. So you don't want to delay. So be aware of that as well. So that is now also I think when you're doing the search, somebody asked me, Rabbi, what should I be thinking about during the search? Now, obviously, there's a mitzvah. The Torah says, I want you to get rid of your chametz, but and obviously it's all about the exodus of the going out of Egypt, where we there was no time for the matzah to rise, for the dough to rise. But I think is also a person should be thinking about on a more deeper level, on a more deeper level, is that we all have chametz in our life. We all have a certain amount of things that we have to correct, that we have to improve, that we can be better. And perhaps maybe that's something that we should think about when we remove the chametz. We should say, you know what, we also have to remove some spiritual thing, chametz. Maybe there's certain character traits that we have, certain types of activities that we do, or habits that we have that need to be corrected. So maybe that's something we have to think about when we do the chametz, and to recognize the same way it's a job to go ahead and to find all the chametz, but it's a labor of love. We're excited about doing the mitzvah. But when you put your time into it, when you put the efforts into finding the chametz, you know what happens? You find the chametz. The people who have a lot of the women have a great system how they don't wait to the last minute, and they're very careful about how they clean everything properly, and they're very successful that the house comes out to be beautiful. Everything is clean, and everything, there's no chametz. You won't find chametz in the house. So too, every person, if each person would go ahead and focus and put time and effort and have a system of attack on their own deficiencies, the same way people have a system to figure out how to clean the house, that will go ahead, and that's a very big thing to think about. We're also going to be having changes in the davening. So again, that's what I wanted to say about the chametz. Let's think about that chametz. And also we have a lot of time during the holiday, a lot of days of holiday that we have to work on growth, personal growth, spiritual growth during this time. Also, the New York Lottery motto, you got to be in it to win it, New York Lotto. I feel the same way when it comes to Judaism about you have to be in the synagogue, you got to be in the shul, you got to attend services. That's part of being in it to win it, because how are people going to remember all the different things the changes? Let's say Shabbat morning, not Shabbat morning, I'm sorry, Sunday morning, where they're going to start, they're going to move away from Mashiv Ruach Amorei Geshem, or some say Goshem or Geshem, different customs. They're going to start saying Moed Hatov in the Amidah, right? Atagibol Olam Hashem Mechayim Meitam Atarav Lo Shia. Now we say Mashiv Ruach Amorei Goshem Amorei Geshem. But we're moving away from that. We're going to be saying Moed Hatov. And some people, different customs, different communities. Some say Moed, some communities just don't say anything at that spot. Different communities. But if you're not in shul, you might not even know. If you don't show up to shul Sunday morning, the first day of the holiday, you might not know that we moved away from Mashiv Ruach and Moed Gashem. And if you don't know that, and then if you continue saying Mashiv Ruach and Moed Gashem, you did not fulfill the mitzvah. You have to repeat the Amidah by saying those words, where it's not supposed. Those words we should not have said Mashiv Ruach Moed Gashem. So therefore, but if we're in shul, you'll see they'll make an announcement. Moed Hatov, they'll make an announcement, and people will know. Also, when you're in shul, you remember. Let's say on Chalamoed, we're going to say Ya'aleh V'Yavo in the Shachrit, in the Mincha, and the Arvit. We say Ya'aleh V'Yavo. In Mitzvah Hashem, we say Ya'aleh V'Yavo. Ya'aleh V'Yavo, B'yom Chag HaMatzot Hazeh, Zochein Hashem L'Tovah. If you're not in shul, you might not remember. You're supposed to add that Ya'aleh V'Yavo in the Shachrit, the Mincha, and Arvit. So I think it behooves all of us to be in shul. You figure out how we're going to spend the time of Pesach properly. So much time of the holiday, let's use it right. I want to wish everyone a beautiful day. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you all for joining. Thank you very much, Ralph. Take care, Ronnie. All the best.